Most horror stories end when the monster dies. This isn't that kind of story. Robin Buckley saved Vickie from the Upside Down. At least, that's what everyone believed. The gate had closed. The rift was sealed. The spiral stopped showing up in her notebook. Vickie went back to band practice. Robin went back to pretending things were okay. They even went on their first real date. Cheap milkshakes, bad fries, and a laughter that felt like it belonged to a life they were finally allowed to have. But the tape kept playing. It was the same old cassette recorder Robin had left running on her desk that night. Just background noise, except at some point, it started recording again. And when Robin played it back the next morning, she heard Vickie's voice. Not singing, not humming, but whispering. And not to anyone else. She was whispering Robin's name, over and over. At first, Robin laughed it off. Maybe Vickie had walked into the room half asleep. Sleep talking. A stray moment captured by coincidence. Weird, yeah, but not unexplainable. That's what she told herself, until she played the rest of the tape. Because the whispering didn't stop at her name. It repeated words Robin didn't recognize. Words with too many consonants and a rhythm that felt wrong. Ancient. Like something buried under 100 years of dust and blood. She couldn't find a translation, but she recognized the cadence. She'd heard it before, in Vecna's voice, moments before someone died. Still, Vickie seemed fine, happy even, more herself than she'd been in weeks. She laughed at Robin's jokes, she played dumb movie trivia games in the cafeteria, she made a new mixtape titled "I'm Trying, Okay?" Robin tried to breathe, to pretend, to match the calm on Vickie's face with the storm brewing in her own chest. But that night, Vickie drew something again. She didn't realize it at first, just doodling in the margins of her notebook while they worked on song lyrics. Robin leaned over to peek at the sketch and froze. It was a pattern, a grid, columns and rows, and in the center, a sequence of numbers, not just random digits, a date, March 1st, 1959. It meant nothing to Vickie. She'd never even noticed she'd written it, but Robin couldn't let it go. So she took it to the only person who'd even entertained the question, Dustin. He called her back 30 minutes later, voice low, no sarcasm this time. That date? It matched an old reference buried in Dr. Owen's hidden lab files. March 1st, 1959, the day Henry Creel first lost consciousness. The day his powers surged. The day Brenner marked as the birth of Subject 001. Vickie had written that date, in perfect handwriting, without knowing what it meant. Robin didn't tell Vickie. She just watched her more closely. The way she hesitated sometimes before answering questions. The way she stared too long at the static on the TV. The way her fingers sometimes tapped against her jeans like she was counting down. The spiral hadn't returned, but Robin didn't need the drawings to know something was circling. Something wasn't finished. Something, or someone, was still trying to come through, and Vickie was its doorway. Robin hadn't slept in 2 nights. She told herself she was just overthinking, that her brain was running too hot, too paranoid. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw numbers swimming behind her lids. She heard whispers in the quiet corners of her room. When she tried to shake it off, to distract herself with schoolwork or cassette rewinds, she'd still catch Vickie in the corner of her vision, humming. Always that same eerie broken lullaby. It wasn't until she saw the map that her fear crystallized into certainty. They were sitting in the Hawkins High Library after hours. The school had mostly been cleared for repairs, but no one had the heart to kick Robin out anymore. Vickie sat at a table by the back wall, sketching lazily in her notebook while Robin revealed a printout Dustin had given her, files about psychotic echo links, and early reports of emotional anchors from Russian gate experiments. Nothing concrete, but all unsettling. "What you working on?" Robin asked, her voice casual even as her stomach clenched. Vickie looked up, surprised, like she hadn't realized she'd been drawing at all. She turned the notebook toward Robin. At first glance, it looked like nothing, just lines, curves, boxes. But then Robin leaned in. Her mouth went dry. It was a map. A layout of terrain, drawn from above. Dotted trees, a lake bed, a small square that looked unmistakably like a concrete bunker. Robin recognized it from one of Dustin's printouts. He had shown her satellite photos of the ruins near Kamchatka, where the Russians had built their own portal, where Hopper had nearly died. It had never been released to the public. There was no way Vickie could have seen it, but her drawing matched the coordinates, almost perfectly. Robin didn't say anything. She just quietly snapped a photo with her camera, keeping her expression still. Vickie didn't seem to notice. She had already moved on to another page, her eyes slightly glazed, like the act of drawing wasn't coming from her hands at all. Later that night, Robin biked across town to Dustin's place and shoved the photo in his hands. He ran it through an overlay tool on his computer and swore under his breath. It wasn't just close, it was exact. That's when Robin realized Vickie wasn't just channeling something, she was mapping it. Over the next few days, Robin followed her in secret, not out of distrust, but because she needed to know how deep this thing ran. Vickie would zone out in random places, behind the old arcade, in the parking lot of Melvault's, once at the edge of a dried-up storm drain behind the gas station. Every time she stopped, she stared at the ground like it was whispering to her. Robin tried not to think about the first time Max had stood over a gate before falling into Vecna's curse, but the rhythm was too familiar. The final straw came on a foggy Thursday morning. Robin woke to find Vickie wasn't in bed. Her window was open, her bike gone. She found her in the forest, standing barefoot in the middle of the field where the old Hawkins lab once stood. Her eyes were wide, but unfocused. Her mouth moved in slow, silent syllables. Robin rushed toward her, shouting her name, but Vickie didn't blink. Then she spoke. "I can feel him breathing through the cracks," she whispered. "He's not gone. He's underneath." Robin froze. When Vickie finally came to, she collapsed, shivering. She couldn't remember what she'd said, but she begged Robin to help her. She said she was scared, said she couldn't trust her own head anymore. Robin tried to hide how hard her hands were shaking. That night, while Vickie slept, Robin found a torn journal page tucked under her bed. The edges were burned, but the words were still there, written in a rushed, uneven scrawl. "The gate doesn't need to open. I'm already through." Robin sat on the floor, knees to her chest, staring at the page until dawn. This wasn't over. Whatever had reached through Vickie the first time wasn't done with her yet, and now it had a map. Robin didn't want to believe it. She wanted to hold on to the version of Vickie who made her laugh over horror movies, who scribbled dumb song lyrics in the margins of textbooks, who made the world feel like it might not fall apart again. But every piece of evidence said otherwise. The whispers, the drawings, the dates, the maps that led to nowhere, and yet always meant something. She'd tried to reach out to 11, called twice, left a message with Will, but nothing came back. Elle had been distant since the last gate opened. Her powers were flickering, duller, like something was blocking her range. Maybe that was the point. Maybe this new force, whatever it was, had learned from Vecna's mistakes. It didn't want to tear open the world all at once. It wanted to come back quietly, precisely, and Vickie was the perfect vessel. Robin found her again at the ruins of the Creel house. The front porch had collapsed, and most of the windows were boarded up, but the house still breathed. The air around it was colder than the rest of Hawkins, as if the upside down had never really left. It had just settled beneath the foundation, waiting for the right crack to bleed through again. Vickie stood in the parlor. Her hands hung limp at her sides, her eyes half closed like she was dreaming with her body awake. She was humming, that same melody, over and over, slower now, almost reverent. Robin stepped inside without a sound. Her fingers tightened around the handle of the tape recorder she carried like a weapon, even though she didn't know what good it would do. She watched Vickie sway like a ghost caught between timelines, and her heart broke all over again. When Vickie spoke, it wasn't to her. Not really. "It's getting easier," she said, her voice flat. "Staying here, in this skin." Robin didn't respond. Not right away. She waited for a flicker of Vickie's real self to peek through, but the girl she loved wasn't in the room. Not fully. "I know you're in there," Robin finally whispered, "and I know you're scared, but I'm not leaving. Not again." Vickie's head tilted, her lips parted, and then, just for a moment, her voice returned, soft, shaking. "I can feel it pulling," she said. "Like it's not just in my head anymore. Like it's using my memories to make something new. Like it's learning how to be me." Robin stepped closer. She didn't reach out yet, didn't want to break the fragile thread of clarity. "Then fight it," she said. "We beat Vecna, we can beat this." Vickie closed her eyes. A tear slid down her cheek. "You don't get it. This isn't Vecna." The floor creaked beneath them. A low thrum pulsed under Robin's feet. Something deep in the bones of the house responded to the emotions in the room. A rift began to flicker along the far wall, small, unstable, like a heartbeat of static and red light pressing through wallpaper. Robin moved quickly. She pulled Vickie away from it, but the pulse grew stronger. The vines under the floorboards began to twitch, curling toward their feet. And then Vickie screamed. She dropped to her knees, clutching her head, convulsing as whispers poured from her lips in voices that didn't belong to her. They weren't just sounds, they were languages, some human, some not. Robin fell to her knees beside her, shouting her name, holding her tightly even as Vickie's body thrashed. The rift snapped open just an inch wider. just enough for the air in the room to shift, thicker, heavier, hotter. Then silence. Vickie collapsed against her, unconscious. Robin sat there shaking, heart pounding, blood buzzing in her ears. The rift closed just as quickly as it had appeared, sealing with a soft hiss. The vines retreated. The air settled. She carried Vickie out of that house without looking back. Over the next few days, Vickie woke slowly, like a diver coming up for air. She didn't remember the house. She didn't remember the rift. She asked Robin if everything was okay, and her voice was so normal, so sweet, it made Robin cry. They went back to pretending for a little while, pretending everything was fine, that the world was quiet, that the horror was behind them. But Robin knew better. She knew because the next tape on her desk, one she hadn't recorded, was already halfway through playing when she came home from school. And this time, it was her own voice on the tape, repeating those same impossible words, over and over again. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.